Welcome to Never Rewrite. I'm Isaac Askew.
And I'm Jeffrey Sherman. And today we're going to ponder the question: does rewriting an MVP qualify as a rewrite? So this came up in our last episode. I mentioned that I had once done a rewrite. We were talking about reasons that were valid to do a rewrite.
Mm-hmm.
And I mentioned that I'd once done a rewrite. It was an OLTP connection. It was an Excel file that was an OLTP connection to a database that would update a bunch of calculations. And the way that this works, and this is circa 2002-ish. I don't
Mm-hmm.
even know if Excel does this, and if it does, it's all in the cloud and blah blah blah. But back then, you could set up an OLTP adapter, which would connect to a database, and you could set up Excel to use that database to basically do a query, and then you would have macro that or a function that would interpret all the data and then update the spreadsheet.
Mm-hmm.
And this works fine, but it's really inefficient because Excel, it'll do one generic query, and then it'll run all the data through Excel to update the thing.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's one person, that's reasonably fine. And if it's successful, right? If you've got this, now it's an MVP. If somebody's doing this on their own, somebody else wants to use it, it's growing organically. People are copying and sharing this literal spreadsheet that connects to a database in a blocking fashion. Eventually, you get very quickly, about 10 people, you now have a scaling problem.
Right.
And you can't easily fix this scaling problem because your whole UI, the whole way that the system exists is Excel.
Mm-hmm.
You are totally bound to Excel. And in the example, I was shutting down a database, and this was a very last minute thing. It's like, oh, well, before you shut it, I was doing the final, we're getting off this database. We must have been around 2006, because now I'm remembering that the original database was Oracle, and we were getting off Oracle for licensing reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And so I needed to move this database from Oracle to SQL Server. And so in the short term, what I did is I said, okay, I'm going to create a view, and I'll just modify the OLTP connection on your computer, and there's a view that has the same columns with the same names, and you're good to go. And that was fine in as far as it went, but it didn't scale because everybody else kept wanting to use this thing. I'm like, okay, well now
Mm-hmm.
I have a new problem. There's this direct connection to a database, which tightly couples you to the database, and your UI is Excel. And Excel, in this case, is extremely inefficient just because that's not really what it's supposed to be doing. Like it does this, it's check the box, but it's not an efficient way to do it.
Right.
And it's successful. So you've got this successful MVP that somebody wrote who's not a programmer. And now someone who is a programmer needs to scale it, and you cannot possibly scale it through Excel.
Right.
And so I did a rewrite, or I re-implemented. And so the question is that a rewrite, as we say, never rewrite? Have I broken the code?
I think not. And obviously, I'm going to say that, and I'm sure some listeners might roll their eyes, like, really?
Well, it can't be, because I'm saying
rewrite.
Because I did it. It couldn't possibly be a rewrite, and I say never rewrite.
Well, as somebody who didn't do it, I'm the somewhat of a third party here, even though I'm allied with you. But in this particular, historical recollection here, we've set our own definition of what a rewrite is,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because we've had this whole episode. It's like, is it rebuilding? Is it rewriting? Are these synonyms? And are we just trying to evade and say, oh, re-implementing? Like a way to get around, making ourselves
right. We're trying to connect, right? We're trying to find a one-word term that people in the industry understand, so that they understand what we're talking about.
Right. So in the ways we have been setting up the conversation around rewrites in the past, we almost always talk about this Big Bang cutover, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have a Big Bang cutover moment where we have two systems going. That one person stuck on the old, not one person, but some people are stuck on the old system, maintaining and fixing and patching the old system. You've divided your team.
Mm-hmm.
Half of them are working on the new one. Then you have to keep fixing it in the old one, and then implementing in the new. And then you don't have all your criteria for what acceptance criteria for what the new thing should do. Then you don't implement all the things that you should do, so you end up kind of getting it 85% done and abandoning it. There's all these things that we've said this is what we mean when we say don't rewrite,
Mm-hmm.
don't split your team, don't have this huge cutover instead of doing the strangler pattern instead, strangler fig. I think in the way you're describing it, if you have a successful MVP, right, and you're trying to build it in an architecture that's correct for it, you don't your MVP by definition to me isn't a 10-year-old legacy code that you're coming into that you're trying to scale. Like it just
That's
became
fair.
successful, right?
It's a thing somebody built that became successful. Yeah.
Yeah, and presumably, I mean, if it's MVP, I'm assuming it's not long lived, because otherwise it's not an MVP anymore. It's just your P. That's what you're using, right?
Yeah. In this case, like the example was, it's a tool that somebody on a sales desk wrote.
Yeah,
It was probably 6 months old, maybe a year, but it was only useful to this very small group of people because it
right.
was, a sales thing. It was a report,
Hmm.
and the question was, I had to rewrite the report. They thought it was an app. I'm like, it's literally an Excel spreadsheet that,
That's funny.
uh, and I have to rewrite it to in something else, not because I care that it's in Excel, but because it won't scale.
You're right.
Right?
So did you have one team maintaining and bug fixing the old report while you built the new thing?
Well, in this case, they were maintaining and bug fixing it themselves.
Hmm.
Right. So the sequence of events is we had two databases. The Oracle database was sort of the source of truth, and then there's this MySQL database. MS SQL,
Hmm.
SQL Server, and we had done a ton of work to get rid of the Oracle database, and we were doing that for cost reasons. Right. It was
Right.
in this example, or in this case, I was working for a company called Instinet. Instinet was owned by Reuters. Reuters had a site license for Oracle, and so Instinet had a site license for Oracle by transmutation. And so everyone anywhere could just set up a Oracle database willy nilly. And then they split, and suddenly Instinet didn't have a site license for Oracle anymore. And
Mm.
Oracle is expensive. And so they had a problem of, we have a bajillion Oracle databases, and it's going to kill us to pay all the
Yeah.
licensing fees. So we need to get rid of all of these Oracle databases. And there was no grander pattern problem solving there. It was simply all of a sudden, this thing that did not cost us money is now going to cost us tens of millions of dollars a year. And we need to find a cheaper solution.
So you had, even if it was a rewrite in our definition, in the way that we describe the right way to do things is having a forcing function. Like for
Right.
the
There was a
Python
forcing
one,
function. Yeah.
yeah, for the Python one, Google wasn't going to support like this the Khan Academy episode where
Mm-hmm.
they had to move because Google said, hey, we're not going to support the old version of Python. You have to bump your version, and so they had to rewrite it in the newer version. That was their forcing function. Like if they're
Right.
tied in with Google's cloud hosting and they're not going to support them, you have to do something about it, right? It's not just like this case. The most hated case I think of ours
Mm-hmm.
is the idea of new developers coming in going, oh, this code is crap, I don't understand it, it's legacy. Oh, we should pick my favorite technology and do it this way because I just think this code is crappy. That doesn't seem to be the case here. The thing worked, you understood how it worked, there was a
Right.
forcing function with cost that said, hey, I need to implement this in the right way, and it was an MVP. It wasn't like a long-lived legacy product that no one understood, that had people who left or whatever.
Right. And in this case, the forcing function was very graduated, right? Like
Hmm.
Oracle was happy to take the money. The company didn't want to pay Oracle, but
Hmm.
Oracle was not trying to shut it down. They were just wanting to get paid for their product, which is fair. And we didn't want to pay them, which is also fair. Right? Like, it's capitalism.
Right.
And so it was a case of, we need to turn this stuff off because we want to cut costs.
Hmm.
But, and this is where a lot of these kinds of projects flounder, is you could keep paying. You could keep paying Oracle, and then Oracle would keep taking your money. Oracle was not going to shut you down, but it was no longer profitable. It was that big of an expense. Like, most of these databases did not matter particularly, and simply keeping them around would have made the company unprofitable. And
Yeah.
so before the example I'm talking about, we did all this work to synchronize the databases, and we did all the work to cut over the databases, and then we did all the work. This is the final step. We're doing the final dotting the I's and crossing the T's of shutting down these Oracle databases. And I discover there's an application on the sales desk that connects directly to this Oracle database.
Hmm.
And I'm like, wow, why is there an application on the sales desk that connects directly to the Oracle database? That's fundamentally wrong,
Right.
but not really, especially back in the early aughts. And so I go over and I talk to the guys, and they've got an Excel spreadsheet, and it connects directly to the database through an OLTP thing, which is old technology. Basically, Windows could connect to a database, and you could have Excel query it, and the queries would be select star from table, nowhere clause, maybe an order by, and then Excel would process the data and then update your spreadsheet based on whatever filter criteria you have. So it's really inefficient, which again is fine because it's not supposed to be. It's fine for an MVP, but it's not supposed to be for production software.
Right. So I think we can actually zoom out a bit.
Yeah.
Because how it works on your end is different from the concept of like essentially is rewriting an MVP in a successful MVP in the correct in intended architecture. Is that considered a rewrite in the terms that we're talking about here? And I think that's kind of the deeper question, not necessarily just in your case, but just right now. If I build an MVP right now, and by its nature, like we want to go fast, we don't want to spend a lot of money on it. We're just trying to test the idea out. So we're not trying to do it in a perfect way with the perfect solution. I implemented something recently where it's like someone wanted to collect a bunch of data from somebody that was non-sensitive and store it and then get notified. And I'm like, well, can we just use a Google form? Because that will just record everything to a sheet for you and notify you when someone responds. And they're like, oh, yeah. And that's not a clean architectural solution. I'm relying on some other software and I can't really customize the form and it looks tacky. But if it does the job for now, that's fine. Now, if eventually that becomes an issue where someone wants to brand it and scale it and it's bigger than just the spreadsheet, then is that a rewrite? That's kind of the question here. Because now I'm taking something that exists that was successful and now I'm going, I need to build this now, or am I rewriting it?
That's a good question. To put a modern spin on it, if someone who is not a programmer tells ChatGPT, here's our API, here's what I'm trying to learn, write me something that will get me this data.
Yeah.
And it does, right? ChatGPT is totally capable of ingesting an API spec and building you a report and sending that to Google Doc or something. And that would be the modern version of this. It's like, okay, that's not going to scale. It's certainly not going to be easy to update or maintain. But it would totally work if you're on the sales desk and your option is wait 6 months and never get, and maybe get the report you want, or ask ChatGPT to get something that's not maintainable. I do not throw any shade at you at all. I actually applaud you for being resourceful and asking ChatGPT to do that for you. But now if it's successful, now it's my problem. I have to maintain it.
Yeah.
Right. And it's not been in source control and it's not been maintained by any human, and it's got all who knows what and who knows what bugs.
Right.
And it could be thousands of lines of spaghetti because that's kind of what ChatGPT makes.
Yeah. So I think if I were answering this in our framework, I think it's not a rewrite by our definition. For just like the contrived example of, okay, I just got a successful MVP, or I threw something together intentionally cutting corners for speed. It had legs. The MVP has legs. Now we want to actually build it for real. To me, it's not a rewrite because now it's almost like the argument the other person made of rebuilding, which again, we're getting into semantics for these words here.
Yes.
But now you're actually like, you know what to keep and what not to keep. You're just testing out a theory. now you can go, oh, okay, given how people use this MVP, they didn't use this part, but everyone loved these three things. I'm going to toss some stuff they didn't care about and build the things
Right.
that they cared about. You're not really trying to re-implement perfectly the old thing, splitting your team, killing your
That's a
resources,
good
doing
point.
it without burning money. In this case, you're just actually trying to implement it for real for the first time, given a test example. And to me, because of our previous bullet points of what we're considering a rewrite, it doesn't quite pass. And I think even not in our example of, like, even if we're using the term rewrite literally, we're not even writing the same thing in this case, because the first time we threw something together, like, in my case for the Google Forms, we're not even using code in this example. Now we're going to
Right.
code for the first time, so I can't
I think that's
rewrite
a
it.
huge,
Yeah.
huge part of it is the value you get. Well, I guess that doesn't change the question, right? Basically, I'm not convinced that it's not a rewrite. I'm saying it's an okay thing because the amount of value you get from being able to perform the experiments, right? Like these
Yes. Yeah.
salespeople, I don't know how many other reports that they generated with this OLTP thing that they didn't had no legs and they didn't care about and they threw away. But
Yeah.
if the sales group can make 10 or 20 vibe coded reports, and then eventually one of them catches on, and that's the one that they bring in the developers for. That's to me, I still think it's a rewrite, although maybe
Mm.
we'll use the rebuild word, but it's totally worthwhile. That's a great thing. And maybe that's the difference here for semantically cutting this thing of the people who wrote the software weren't developers.
Yeah.
And so if you have other people who aren't developers and aren't getting paid like developers writing software, and then you have to have developers rewrite it, that is different than developers writing software that you then have to rewrite with other developers.
Yes, I think that is a good distinction, and also the freshness of it, because a lot of times we're talking about legacy code that's old. Like, we get hired to go into frameworks that are 5, 10, 15 plus years old, understand who came before and what needs to be done, write tests to actually understand the code, because we're confused at how it should be done. You
Mm-hmm.
don't have any of that same issue with a very fresh MVP that you just built and tested, and it's less than a year old.
Right, the
You
people are
still are
still
talking
there.
to the people who are there. You know what it's supposed to do, because it's MVP. It only does like three things, so you're not like confused about all the different things it was hacked to work on certain customers, blah blah blah. you know so in our,
Flashbacks.
literally, yes, you're rewriting it to work better, but in our, examples of what not to do when it comes to a big rewrite, you're not splitting your team, you're not digging through legacy code you don't understand, that has,
Mm-hmm.
a bunch of features that no one can answer what they do and why. All these parameters we've set up for what a rewrite is in our in the thing that we should never do don't exist
Yes.
in this case. In this case, we do want to do these things.
And an important call out as well is you are translating things that have value, right? A part of the never rewrite framework, or part of the reason not to rewrite, is you have to rewrite a whole bunch of code that has almost no value.
Yeah.
And in this case, you don't. You are rewriting code that has value.
Only the code that has value,
Only,
actually.
yeah, right. You're rewriting only the code that has value, and you know it has value because that's why you're rewriting it. And that's a huge impact. Like, I would say in most rewrites, 50% or more of the code that you're rewriting, you don't even know if it has value. And here you know that 100% of it has value.
Yep. So I think in this case, yeah, it's still tricky because we still haven't gotten a good way around these words, because literally rewriting,
These words are
this
abstract and they
isn't
don't mean.
technically a rewrite. We have to come
Yeah.
up with our own word, because, like, saying never rewrite old legacy systems that are not very well tested and the people who aren't there, who wrote it, aren't there anymore, blah 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 blah, is really lengthy. And never rewrite
Yes.
is a very punchy, quick way to say it.
Right. But never rewrite is punchy. Thesis shipping is punchy, even though no one knows how to say it. If you hear it written, if you see it written, no one is able to say it out loud unless they've heard us
Test
say
ship.
it. Thesis ship, yeah.
DC ship.
It's Theseus, but I've extended is to shipping. It's perfectly obvious, unless you haven't ever seen it before. Right. We
Theseus
need
ship.
to come up with new words, and that is actually One of the keys of being a subject matter expert is that you are one of the people who invent new words to describe
Oh,
things. And when other people start using your words, that's when you become the expert.
excellent.
That's what
That's
other
our goal
writers
is,
have
yeah.
said on this subject. Awesome. Well, we have already blown our New Year's resolution to keep the episode shorter. So I think we should leave it here
Excellent.
until next time.
All
Thank
right.
you all for listening. I'm Jeffrey Sherman, and please
I'm
subscribe.
Oh, that's right. Like and subscribe, everybody, before we end. Please, if you made it this far and didn't close the episode midway through, please like and subscribe. 70% of our listeners are not subscribed, according to YouTube. So, anyway. All right.
Who
And
are
I'm
you?
Isaac Askew.
Thank you.
And this is Never Rewrite.